Hello! Where have I been? Okay, so what you're going to see today is an edited version with some new footage at the end of a video I made for my newsletter subscribers that played on Zoom about a month ago. If you aren't a newsletter subscriber and you'd like to come along to my free Zoom events, then sign up for the newsletter at the link below. You might fall between two newsletters and miss the first Zoom, but I'll try to get information out as soon as possible to any new subscribers. Enjoy, and if you have any comments, questions, queries, observations, and cease and desist notices, put them in the comments below. And if you feel like buying me a new paintbrush, click the link below as well. All donations gratefully received. Enjoy the video. What I'm going to show tonight are just some really fun, easy ways to do centrifugal colouring. I've done some proper preparation. Shock horror. Often when I go and do a demo, I'll just turn a piece of wood and won't sand it. I'll just put some lacquer on and say, "We'll look better if you'd prepared it." So preparation for making a centrifuge. And it doesn't have to be black, but I do like to start with a painted surface, and I'll explain why in a moment. Turn it, try to get it fairly level. You can see here I've got a little bit of a dip in there, but that's going to make it interesting to lead the eye in anyway. And then sand. And for lacquer, I sand to 400. I used an inertia sander, a wide pad, so that I'm sanding it as quickly as possible. It is quite dusty in my workshop. You can probably see picking up some flecks of dust on there. That's an inevitability of not having a finishing workshop. Still working on that with the management at home. So sanded to 400, sanding sealer. Because I do so much work with spirit stains, I pretty much always use an aerosol sanding sealer now. So acrylic sanding sealer. And then on the top I have put a couple of coats of Chestnut's ebonizing lacquer. It's not quite the same as paint. We'll have a look at that a little later on when I've got a paint one for you. This has got lacquer on it and you can still see the grain coming through, whereas paint often will hide that. Between coats I rubbed down briefly just to give it a smoother surface as possible with a rather grubby orange piece of nye web. You could use sandpaper, but probably anything more than 400 is going to be a bit too much. So if you use 400 very lightly, probably something like 800 will be better. And really what you're aiming for is a surface that is smooth and slippery for the paint to move on. So this is the Chestnut Turquoise. Do give them a good shake. I'll just pop some in there. I'm going to put a fair amount in because I'm going to use it probably a couple of times. And just a paintbrush. That's all you need to put it on. I find there are two ways. You can put the paint on with the wood spinning, or you can put it on with the wood still. If you want a neater version, I'll often put it on with the wood spinning. Not very fast because I don't want it necessarily to start moving yet, but this will allow you to put on a nice concentric ring of colour. And getting that concentric ring of colour gives you a bit more choice about how you want to turn the wood away. Now we can crank the speed up. We've got some on, and you should see it beginning to spread across. I can see it's come out to about there now. Now I've got a bit of paint on there, I can put a bit more on. Spin it up a bit faster. You want to get it to about 2000. There we go, I can see that moving across more. Now I've also made myself, which is quite handy, a little rack like this to put the paintbrushes in. Right, let's see how we've got on with that. Right, so I've got some very, very nice strong lines you'll see coming across there. I think I might need a little bit more light on there for you. Yeah, that gives a bit of difference. So you can see these paints make very thin lines almost immediately. They do show up a bit brighter in here than they're showing on the camera at the moment. Part of that, I think, is because this box is putting them into a bit of shade. That does make a bit of difference. Yeah, I think that makes a bit of difference. So that could be where you leave it. You know, one colour can look quite classy. So if you want to keep it neat, that's the neatest kind of centrifuge, where you put a solid colour on and it spreads out. And I'll just have it spinning at a lowish speed, just to establish some of the colour. And then we'll crank the speed up, and you'll see that probably move much more readily and easily. We've got someone else without a mute on their mic. So there we go. So that's given us a nice sort of mixture of green and yellow, and of course the original blue in there. Now I like the fact that it's mostly going all the way to the edge, but this is quite nice with shorter runs of it as well. I mean, one thing to say, that because these have been turned on the lathe, sanded, finished, taken off and then put back on, they're not quite true. And sometimes that puts them, when you put them back on the lathe, you know, it's almost impossible sometimes to get them exactly level and running true. And that can bias the way that the paint moves. But that's what I like about this thin paint. It really does make a very smooth movement, and it moves much better over the painted surface. So the brushes I used first of all were round brushes, but I want to put bands of colour on, so I'm going to use these flat brushes here. They're maybe about 1/2 inch wide, so that will give us a wider band of colour. And I want to put these colours on with the wood spinning again. I want to keep the circles concentric, but I don't want it spinning at top speed. Go a little bit lower. Okay, and I think I'll start off with the turquoise. We just put a band of colour, a couple of coats. So turquoise. Then I think, and I'm going for in-your-face bold colours. You could try this with subtler colours if you wanted. You might decide, actually, I just like it with concentric circles. I don't want to do the spinning. There's a bit of red. The red perhaps won't show up quite as bold on the surface, but I'm hoping to get that to run into the yellow and give us a bit of a mixture as well. Got to move while these paints are still wet. Obviously out here you can see the yellow is a lot thinner because it's the same amount on the brush is spread covering a larger area, so you need to adjust the amount of paint. I think I'm just going to do that for that one, and I'll finish with some red, and we'll see how that works with just one coat of turquoise. Then the fun part, crank up the speed. Now when you're doing it with lots of rings of colour, don't immediately jump to a very fast speed, because you could get the colours just all running into each other and becoming rather blurred. But can you see here the yellow is looking here a distinct orange hue, so that will please you, Roger. Just see if there we go, put a bit more light on there. It blinds me a little bit, but that's giving us a bit more. Okay, so what have we got here? We've got nice lines of colour running through each other. The blue has moved a little bit, but not very much actually. Now that was on for the longest. It's probably the one that's perhaps dried the most. So I'm going to put a bit more blue on. It could be a mistake, but one of the things I like about using this technique is you can stand here for quite some time playing around with colour and getting interesting results, and just keep turning it with wet paint. And then we'll spin that down. So these paints are not thinned. Oh, that's given a rather interesting effect. I said earlier about blanks being a little bit out of balance, and this one is definitely a little bit out of balance. You can see that's reflected in the way it's moved there. But I think that's ruined it. I probably span it a bit too fast. But I am not going to be deterred, because often you can fix a lot of what's going on. Just turn the speed back down, come back to your paints, get a bit of yellow in that space. And fire up again. Put that brush down, bring the speed up. And let's put a nice bright band in the middle there. Right, so there we go. We've got our even edge back again. The blue has almost completely disappeared. If you've gone to all of that trouble and you don't like it, you don't have to turn it all off. We can just put more colour over the top. And this will help give a bit of texture and structure to the paint that we put on it. So just as a way of demonstrating that, I'm going to start all over with completely different colours. Now these colours, these are artists' paints from Jo Sonja. These you do need to thin down, and I'll show you why. In comparison to the paints, the very runny paints that are the chestnut paints, this is a lot thicker. So I'll just pop some out. So you can see there how it holds its shape, thick strands of paint. If I put that on, it will not move at all. Now the way to make it move is not to add water, although if all you have is water, that's okay, but thin it down with some flow medium. So this is Jo Sonja Flow Medium. It's an acrylic medium. It will thin the paint but not the colour. So this is something worth having in your paint armoury. If you want it to move as freely as these chestnut colours, you'll need to thin it down at least 50-50, which is kind of what I've done. There's a large lump. Some of the paints are thicker than others when they start off in the tube. And one of the fun things can be putting wet paint over itself, like we've seen here, how that red has taken on a sort of, well actually I think the blues help to make it a bit darker, a sort of dark, almost burgundy colour. Right, let's go on to it. So this, I'm going to have the speed down. I'm just going to use this as a canvas to put other colours on as if there's nothing there. Because the most important thing about doing a process like this is seeing how far you can go with it, playing around with it, having a bit of fun. That's going to obliterate probably most of everything underneath it, but it will follow those lines. It'll put a bit of texture in it all ready for us. Oh, I like the boldness of that. I'm going to show you what happens if I put one of my favourite colours on the top of it, and that is this wonderful pink. It doesn't quite show up the brightness of the pink on the monitor. I'd have to do some colour calibration. Now, one thing you might have seen other people do, and it's something I'm not as fond of, but I will just do some of that, is rather than put a ring of paint, they put blobs of paint. And you have to do this fairly speedily if you don't want the paints to start running, and then they'll spin it out from those dots. I'll just do this as an example. Myself, I'm not usually as satisfied with it done like that. Don't think we need to spin it quite as fast, but perhaps with this one, if I were to think, okay, well, it's quite interesting, a bit broken up, but what if I put other dobs of colour in there and let them run through each other? So the white is often a nice colour to add into a centrifuge effect because it gives a very nice, sharp, strong colour. Whether that sharp, strong colour will survive against all of these other colours, we shall have to see. And we don't have to stop here even. We could decide that actually we want to put some more rings of colour on. Right, fire it up. Right, now what has happened there? Anyone got an idea?
Yes, it's a mess.
Yes, why is it a mess?
Too thick.
Too thick. Did someone say too thick?
Too thin.
Too thin. I think it's because it's too thick myself, and it hasn't really moved as much as I'd like it to. So
looks like a seagull's visited.
It does look like a seagull's visited. Good. Please don't hold back. I don't want people thinking, oh, something Stuart's done. It must be brilliant. It's a mess. White can sometimes really ruin things. If it looks like it's ruined, I don't know. We'll just try it and try and spin it at a bit faster speed. Might spin it all off then. While I was looking for a copper. This is what I like doing. I just like playing and seeing what happens. Not very much else has happened with that, has it? Okay. Do we leave it on or do we put something all over the top of it? I'm going to leave it where it is for now. And I'm going to use some copper because there was a request for some metallic. This again is a Joe Sonia one. This is their burnished copper. Their metallic acrylic paints are very strong. And copper might go nicely with a bit of green. Rapidly working my way through my paintbrushes. I might have to take a pause to do some brush washing.
Demonstration, some pros and cons of what he's doing, but he's emphasizing what can do. Mixing the colors is really hard sometimes.
So let's get that turned down. Spinning. I'm going to do a solid colour of the gold.
Now he's getting a lot of globs.
And then spin up. And we've got another unmuted mic. Let's see if we can just find where that is. Right, so we're spinning that and seeing what's happening there. Right. Haven't spun it quite so fast. Let's see what we've got there. Right, so it's still in the centre, so let's spin it up a bit faster. Can we see that edge moving a little bit better? Put a little bit more on. And give it another look. Right, so I think that works nicely in these areas, but the white has really given me a bit of a headache to try to get rid of because it hasn't worked at all. What I'll do to show why I think it's too thick is I'll thin it down a bit more. So, got a bit more of the flow medium in there. Mix it up to be much thinner. And we'll put some blobs here, and we'll see if it's been mixed thin enough, if it's enough to save my reputation. So this is one of the reasons I don't like the blobs approach, because you get the gaps between them. You don't get the same uniformity of colour spreading. But that should be a bit thinner. Yeah, so here you see these are the thinner ones. We've got thinner lines rather than them clumping together. So kind of there, but really at the moment this one is now looking rather overworked and a bit sorry for itself. Do we all agree? Thumbs up or nods of head. Excellent. I also give myself a thumbs up for it being rather rubbish at the moment. But this is the playful one. This is the experimental one. So I'm going to put white all over it now. And I do have one of these little squirty water bottles. I'm just going to prime it up, make sure it's squirting properly. If I am restrained and just do one quick squirt, I'm not going to do too much damage. If I do any more, it probably will wash all the paint off. So there we go. That was just one squirt. You saw how it washed from the middle. But hopefully that's pushing it further to the edge. Okay, good. Now that is beginning to almost be something that I could live with, in part. And the part that I can live with is this part out here, not this bit here. So I'm going to try to make this even more vibrant. I'm going to use up some of the paints that I've got. I've got my bright pink in here. Let's go with that. So this will run into that edge. Hands up if you think I'm making it up as I go along. I always have done. Oh no, well there is one more making it up as I go along one to come. Right, that is, yeah, still on the outside edge, but there is where we've got those other blobs of colour is pretty grim. I think we can all agree. Right, so I am going to do something a little more experimental and try and frame this. Now, if you've been to any of my demos, the last demo I was at, I said to people, if it doesn't work, you still don't like it, try black. And if the black doesn't save it, it's got to come off. So let's see, will this save the day? Well, it will save the day if it completely covers it all in black. So I'm going to put a bit of black in and I'm going to thin it down with the flow medium, which I've put up here, just to allow it to move a little better. I'm going to put it on a middle line, but I may also use it for an edge. So quite a lot of flow medium has gone into this black, perhaps a little more than I intended. This black is not as strong black as I'd like it, so I'm going to put a tiny bit more of the paint back in. Oh, and drop the lid on the floor. Pick that up. Okay. So let's get that mixed in. And let's get the wood spinning. I'm going to put it about here. Right, let's see how far that moves. I need it to go a bit further. Okay. Oh, the suspense is killing me. Come on, that view. Let's have a look. Okay. Right. Next thing for me to do is I've got this nicer transition point, I think, but it feels a bit strange to come straight in from the edge. So I'm now going to attempt to paint a neat line. You could do this with an airbrush and some paint. I want to find a speed where it's spinning relatively fast, but without much vibration. And I'm going to load my brush, and this is where having the flow medium in it is going to prove helpful, because it will help the colour move much more easily and freely over the surface. often getting a frame in on your colouring really will lift it and elevate it. I probably could do with a better quality brush. It's got a little trailing bit there. Let's see if that's going to have done enough. Yes, well, I think that's enough for me to think there's something there that I can salvage, but I can't turn it yet. There's too much wet paint on there. But I will take a picture of this one as well, because I suspect there are a number of you sitting at home thinking, oh, that looks really horrible. Are there any of you sitting at home, oh, that looks really horrible? Nod, thumbs up. I think it's got some potential, but you have to ignore the middle. Now, it might be that the potential of this could be improved by, instead of having this black as a ragged line, had it as a straight line. Do we think that might look better? Oh, I'm looking at your faces. Oh no, thank you, Dave. You're saying no, keep it jagged.
It's fine as it is.
Ah, that's very kind of you. Thank you, Colin. Right, I'll put that to one side and let that dry. Now, I have seen a turner. I don't think he does turning anymore. A turner on one of the Channel Islands who's done a few of these, the exact same colour combination. My red and gold, I call it. So if you want to have a go at this, that's fine. But I think it's about time someone tried it with some different colours. I'll put those there to show in a moment. And one of the things that is useful about doing this technique is I move away from having just a plain background. This is one where I start talking when demos about how I like there to be some idea of some depth in the colour. So I'm going to put a background on with just a bit of paper towel, level 1 paper towel application, if you know my dabbing lines and cylinders. So just a little dried bit of paint there. Just a little smidge of paint. I want to just spread that around on the cloth to not have a great big blob of paint go on, and then I'll start in the inside and then work to the outside. Now this is quite a nice way of creating a paint texture on a rim without even doing the centrifuge, but I think this is a nice way of adding some interest in the background behind the colours. And again, start in the middle because that's going to be covered up with our centrifuge, still a bit strong. So now I'll just work that round to the edges. So that's our background colours. I'll just get the hairdryer running on that and mix up the next two colours. So I'm going to put gold, red and gold on, and the reason I'm going to do 2 layers of gold is I want to have the gold as a background and a foreground colour. I think it just helps to frame the red that I'm going to put on. I'm going to put it on with the lathe stationery and blob it around, and it's going to be uneven deliberately. So it's a bit thicker here, and I'll go with it a bit thicker here. Now I think this technique, more than perhaps some of the other colouring techniques you've seen me do, is one that really does need to have that middle turned out to really make it look like, oh, I've done something that isn't just a dog's dinner of paint all over the place. So you have to have faith that, or imagine that you turn the middle out and it looks very different. It gives it a frame. So let's spin this. It shouldn't move evenly, but I do want to get the gold lines coming all the way to the edge. I can see them about here now. Yeah, I can just see them moving along pretty much at the edge if my eyesight isn't failing. That's not going as fast. That's only going at 1800. If it's not fast enough, we can put it back on. Yeah, there we go. So we've got, you can see here, hasn't moved so much here, which probably doesn't matter too much, but we can correct that. We can just put a little blob on there and fire it up again. And just give it a little burst of speed. And then that's better. I want that all over. So now I put the red in here. Although you're looking at it, aren't you? You say, Stuart, you've missed a bit here. Well, that bit I think I can cover with some red. I don't think it'll matter. But if it does worry anyone, I'll just put a little blob of gold there while I'm mixing up this last colour. Now, so where the gold has come out further, that's where I'm going to make the red go on a bit thicker. I don't want it to completely cover up all of this gold. I want some gold showing through for when we put the final bit of gold over the top. And a little bit more there. And if this doesn't go far enough, then we can put some more on. So we've watched that red move across. Gold's got a little bit orange. It's not gone quite as far as I would like it. It's a little bit on the thick side. I haven't got any moving up there, so I will put a little more there. And give it another spin. Probably for shorter, but a bit faster. Get it up to top speed and then stop. Right, I'm happier with that. So you can see here now, so we've got the two layers. We've got the gold underneath there, the red on the top, but I want some red as the centerpiece. Some gold, sorry, as the centerpiece. So we're going to have to get the hairdryer running again, only for a moment, just to surface dry it. So a bit of gold. I don't want to work it too much or touch the brush too much onto the red. So I'm just going to do a few dabs of it. And there we go. Right. So spin this up nice and fast. Watch the lines go. Make sure all the red doesn't get obliterated. Turn off, have a quick peek. If you need to turn it back on again, that's not a problem. Right, that's enough. Now, I have here, I said this is something that is repeatable. So, I've got this one here from a demo. Oh, did I do this? I think I did this Colchester turner. So you can see, very similar effect coming out. The colours have they've dried, and the eagle-eyed amongst you will spot, what's that strange line? Well, that is testament to making sure that you check that the wood spins freely and that the tool rest isn't in the way. Now, and what I've got here, where you've got a crisp edge against it, it lifts it. At the moment, on the one on the lathe looks a little bit messy. And here is one that hasn't had the centre turned out, but has got some finish on. Now, I think the finish on this really helps to lift it. It's been in and out of a sack of blank, so you can see it's got a few scratches on it. But the finish that I've used on here is a better finish in my view than lacquer, which is what I've used pretty much all through making of these decorative pieces. Got some yellow paint on there now. And that finish is a wipe-on polyurethane. Now, it's not something that's so common over here. It's just something that Chestnut Products have recently released, and they sent me a sample bottle of it. I really like it over paint, because over here where we've got all these lines are going to be slightly higher and they're slightly raised up. The wipe-on poly acts as a leveler, because it's not there's not a huge difference in the depth of those things. So wipe on poly is a fun one to use, particularly over paint. So this is what I was talking about, the difference between using lacquer and using paint. So this has had paint put on it, and apart from the fact there's a grubby fingerprint somewhere, you can't see any of the grain of the wood. It takes all of that away. The lacquered ones, you know, we could see the grain. Now, I've been asked several times, does the background have to be black? And I've always said, no, it can be whatever colour you want. And I've never done it a different colour. So tonight, it's a different colour. And I'm going to hand over to you. You've seen a range of different techniques, concentric circles spreading outwards, concentric rings of colour next to each other, the odd blob, an asymmetrical centre blob. Can we do something collaboratively? It would probably look awful, just saying, but I'm opening it up to you to unmute your mic and say, well, at least a colour, or concentric circles, or crazy random blobs all over the place.
No blobs.
One at a time.
Blue and green.
Blobs.
Blue and green. I heard green. Okay, green. Did someone say blue?
Blue.
Blue.
And Stuart, could
Yeah.
you do semicircles?
Steve, for you, I can do anything.
Good.
Now, when you say semicircles, do you mean concentric semicircles, or do you just mean semicircles
No,
random?
doing it the other way round. So the bottom of the semicircle touches the centre.
Like that?
Yes.
Ooh, what a nice idea. Well, let's mix up some green and see what happens. This is a very green.
Lots of hope.
Do you want some orange, Roger, if you're still here?
No.
No?
No. Try some black. Goes well with yellow.
Black and yellow, I know. The most contrast, creates the most contrast, those two colours.
How about starting your circles from the outside working in rather than inside working out?
That's another nice idea. Yeah, so start here so that they spin colour, and then the other ones. Nice idea. But Steve got in first with his semicircles. He wants to see. I think he really wants to see how accurately I can paint a semicircle freehand. He says, looking around desperately for something, a compass and a paintbrush can go in. Or
Use a coffee cup.
Or my special semicircular blank. There we go. A coffee cup. That we would do different sizes, couldn't we? So what do you imagine is going to happen with this? And
Miracle.
do we want 3? Let's have 3. Oh, look at that. It's already a mess. I knew I shouldn't have let anyone else have any ideas. Oh, it's running off a little bit. But this is what you've come to expect, isn't it? Madness with a paintbrush. Whenever I get a paintbrush in my hand, I have delusions of grandeur, of being almost an artist instead of a charlatan. Right, let's spin it. I think that was a bit fast. It may have spun all of it off. Ooh, so we've got a little bit of movement, not a huge amount. At the moment, it doesn't look very prepossessing. So there we go. That's your first colour. And then some blue was mentioned. We're going to build up lots of different shapes with this one, I think. I think I'm going to go a little faster. This one blank is not quite so balanced as some of the others. just go over here, crank up the speed. Beginning to move, but I think the blue is not quite so runny as it could be. But I quite like the idea of it not moving quite so far. There's one. The blue is not quite dry, so we've got a bit of contamination in there. I forgot about drying it. And sometimes these things that look an absolute mess, in fact, stay looking an absolute mess. Sometimes they become something quite spectacular. So that's running in reverse as well. I'm running out of room on there. I'll put it back to the right way. So yeah, so I made the red thinner, and I think that's quite interesting. I'll show you a view from here. But I think my inept abilities with a paintbrush to make neat to make neat arches is a bit challenging here.
Stuart,
Yeah.
how about trying a one line diagonal but off centre? Just straight down.
Just straight
as
down.
A line.
Yeah. I mean that will give us.
I think that do something more.
I think you're right. I'd like to do it straighter than I'm probably going to do it, but I'm going to stick with the red to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do one just down here.
Good.
And I think that I like that so much I'm going to do one of the other colours cutting across it. Sort of put me in mind a bit of the 3D ribbons. And although we're building something, probably, you know, some of this is going to get lost in the middle, but it's out here where we're building the pattern up that's going to be more interesting, I think. Which I will run across there.
Yeah.
Oh no, that green, that's, ugh.
Yeah, I could mix a green up with the blue and the yellow. So that's getting more interesting. But I'll do one across there. And it's quite interesting not drying the paint off as well, actually. I mean, I could have dried that blue a bit. This is good fun. This is what this yellow one was always intended to be, a bit of an experiment and see what happens. And so for these green lines, I think I'm going to do one cutting across there and another one across there and spin it. Right, so where we've got one there, one there. They've sort of run a little, not very much. Maybe I need to put a bit thicker coat on. I'm trying not to keep saying moron because it is my nickname, isn't it, Roger? But people do hear the hyphen in there when I say I've got a friend who calls me Stuart Moron Farini. You can definitely hear the comma. But
At least you can spell hyphen. It's the Dutch more then.
There, now. I mean, yeah, it is art by committee, and often my demos get to this level. The very first club demo I did up in Birstall in Yorkshire, the last demo piece of the night was a you decide the colours audience, and it was horrible. We all agreed it was horrible. It was just a bit of fun. But this has given me something to think about with the transparent colours. Maybe I've actually found a use for them. So I've got transparent red here. Right, so let's do one there. Oh, picked up the wrong paint. And one there. Spin it and hopefully it'll go a bit more transparent than it looked there. Yes, it has. Look at that. Now, we've got nothing running across here. I think we need something running across there. What have we got? We've got transparent green. I don't think I've got a transparent blue. I think down like that. There we go, nearly done. Oh, no white! All white. Okay, that's interesting. Valerie's put the comment, no white in capitals and lots of exclamation marks. And then Al has gone white. So it's 50-50.
Stuart, put some transparent black in the middle.
In the middle, as a circle, and let it spread. And that will be our, I think that will be a unifying
I just did that
colour.
with my, got a disc on my screen.
Oh, yeah.
I can see it, yeah.
I think I've got one indoors where I've done that with a very busy background, and then if you put black on, like as the sort of unifying, it would definitely have to be black and not white. But I haven't got an opaque, a transparent black, but I have got. Can I find it? I have something called Clyster medium. Now, this is a Joe Sonia product that I've just remembered about, which is a transparent medium. It might make the black a bit transparent. It might not. So, are we prepared? Are we prepared to ruin it?
Yes.
Always. I mean, I think it's important to just try these things out, and just play with them. But I definitely want to come back to these transparent paints. I probably want to go to Hobbycraft tomorrow and buy some more. Right, so I'll put a bit of this. I mean, we've already got flow medium in with the black. I'm not going to start a new bit of black. Let's see how we get on with this. There's an alarming greyness over appearing in that spinning round. Right, so it's got this far. It hasn't got all the way out here, which I think is a shame. But it is transparent. Can you see there? So you can see how it's different here over the yellow than it is over the red. So that's pleasing to know that my Clyster medium works. But I think it needs to go a little further. All the way? Or are we saying, stop, you idiot? Or stop, you genius?
All the way.
All the way!
All the way, you genius.
I'd say genii, as we've all been together on this ride. I should have played some hypnotising music over that. Right, so we now have black pretty much has come all the way out to there. I think that might be it. Or do we want a couple of thin black lines here and here?
That's it, yeah. Good boy.
I'm pleased the bar magnets on my box are so strong. Oh, did you see a little drop fall off the brush? think that is a stop, and I think the only bit that gets turned out is this little bit here. We did, what was the first one? I mean, this is a very nice, crisp, clean, inoffensive in comparison effect. You can see there, I think you can just see the grain. You can see the grain, like I say, if you use lacquer, the grain sometimes will fight centrifuge. Do this kind of effect on a very close grained wood. I've tried it on ash and it really doesn't work. The grain fights behind it. Then we got a little bit more experimental and adventurous, and I think I prefer this one over the first one. Then this is one I've been doing since 2017. If you want to see a very youthful me, well, a slightly more youthful me. 7 years ago, the first one I did of these. It's about video number 4 on my YouTube channel. Go back and have a look and see if it still came out as well. And then we have.
Last haircut, wasn't it?
It was my last haircut, yes, Roger. And then we have number 4, which on the monitor is not looking as bright as it looks here. So I will take some photographs of them all and send them around as well. I think what I need to do is to have you give a sort of group cheer. You can cheer for as many of them as you want, and we'll see which one is the winner. So unmute your mics, and if you want to give this number 1 a cheer, and remember you can vote for all of them.
Yay.
Okay, that was about 4 on my decibelometer. Okay, number 2. Oh, that's a 5. We have a new first place. Number 3. Oh, I'm saying that's sort of similar to. I've got these two as tying. And number 4.
Yes.
So number 4 is in 4th place. I think you're a bit harsh.
You can send it to me, Steve.
I think you're a bit harsh. One thing I have been thinking about is whether I should put a bit more structure in here with some thicker black lines, but I think I'm going to leave it as it was at the end of last night's Zoom meeting. Right, so let's get this wipe on poly onto the surface. You don't want to put it too thick, and you can build up a thicker coat by putting one coat on, letting it dry, good couple of hours, light sanding, and then another coat, and then repeat and another coat, and then you can buff the surface up. There are 1 or 2 little bits of dust that have got stuck in the paint. I think I will live with those, and let's just wipe this on. I'll protect the bed of the lathe from drips. You could do this off the lathe, but my camera setup is very nice here to do it with the lathe, with it on the lathe. Well, thank you for watching the video. I hope it's given you some ideas to have a go, but more importantly, I hope it's persuaded you to sign up for my monthly newsletters. You'll then get an invitation to the free monthly Zoom meeting where you can interact in real time with me, talking. We can see each other's faces. I really enjoy doing those Zoom meetings because it gives a chance for that connection that doesn't come across in YouTube. It's fun to make the videos, but it's more enjoyable to me to do things live in front of people. So, sign up to the newsletter. So, until next time, thanks for watching.